Uh, okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. We're here today to talk about the Solidarity Fund, and I think we've heard a lot already in the first sessions today about the funding cuts that have impacted all of us and the sector so far this year. And now we wanted to take the chance to go into some more detail on the Solidarity Fund. This was a very short-term flexible fund that was set up in the immediate response to the USAID cuts. We'll start with sharing a quick overview of the objectives of the fund, the timelines and the design, and how we set it up in Start Network. And then we're really happy to welcome 4 Start Network members today to share how the funding cuts have affected them, and what the Solidarity Fund has been used for. And finally, as we've been hearing a lot of already today, and in line with the overall themes of our assembly, we want to explore what happens next. As the funding cuts deepen, worsen, how will this continue to affect the panel and then their organizations, their countries, and how can we look forward to new ways of working together? So first of all, just to introduce the fund from our side, as I think we are very well aware, on the 20th of January this year, the USAID stop work orders were sent out, and we've seen eventually this lead to potentially a 40% reduction in funding, with other donors also talking about reductions in the coming years. In response to this, in February, there were 2 surveys and some meetings among Start Network members. 69% of those that responded to those surveys said that they had received some kind of US funding. And the average cut for those organizations was 30%, but sometimes it was a lot higher. There were some initial discussions with the IKEA Foundation, a donor of ours, an existing donor of ours, and by April 2025, they'd committed 4.2 million GBP of funding. And we had, at that point, agreed some overall aims of this fund. One critical aim was completion of critical life-saving activities where possible, implementing exit plans, dignified closure of programs if necessary, supporting where possible to bridge funding between the US cuts and any other funding that may come online. And we were also very open and really wanted from the beginning to be very flexible and to cover any core costs that organizations needed to cover as well. So before we go on, we then formed an internal working group in Start Network from across many teams. And within a very short timeline, we had a lot of design sessions, pulling together a lot of the expertise that we already have on the pooled funds, but also really working with the membership team and all of our communications and operations colleagues. So it was a really cross-Start Network group that pulled together to design the fund in a short time. We then had the call for proposals was published, drop-in sessions with members, and the deadline for the proposals was the middle of May. And then with thanks to 3 members and 3 staff, we formed a selection panel. And over the week of the 19th to 22nd of May, the project selection took place. And then very soon after, grants were confirmed, funding was released, and the implementation could begin from the 1st of June until the end of December this year. So we have a very quick update here from Julia Hoek, who's the program manager from the IKEA Foundation, just to give a bit more background to the fund.
Hi, everyone. I'm very sorry I can't be there live with you today, but I'm really glad we get to contribute to the conversation today. So from the IKEA Foundation perspective, when the cuts were announced earlier this year, I remember everyone feeling a little bit dizzy, especially as it took some time to really grasp the magnitude of it. And it wasn't necessarily so much that the cuts happen and they will continue to happen, hopefully, though not of that magnitude, but maybe the way these were being done felt like a general attack on solidarity. And while not everything was always good about the development sector, a general lack of nuance and gratefulness for some of the good things that have happened over the last decades. It also felt dizzy because while we knew that philanthropy could play a role in bringing others along, there's also no way it could fill the gap of this magnitude. So there were a lot of internal discussions around what an organization like the IKEA Foundation could realistically do to alleviate some of the short-term pressure while investing in long-term resilience building, given who we are and what our toolbox can provide. And so the START network has, many years of experience running pool funds and getting money quickly where it needs to be. And knowing the diversity of actors within the network, it really felt like the right place to think about how we could help and to funnel funds quickly to bridge these difficult gaps for frontline organizations. So through the Solidarity Fund, we hope that organizations like yourselves who are given very little warnings about these major funding cuts would be able to continue delivering life-saving services while adjusting to the new reality in the most effective and dignified way possible. For me, also, the name of the fund is very important. We're seeing large-scale attacks on solidarity worldwide right now, and it's continuing not just in the humanitarian sector, but I feel like a general retreat in caring for each other as individuals. And I think too, it's important to remember why solidarity is important, why it matters in order to create more resilient and thriving societies. In terms of what happened next in the humanitarian sector after those large-scale cuts, I know this is part of your conversation today. I don't know if we would dare speculate, but our hope is to see a more resilient system, more solidarity, kindness, and collaboration, and more funding geared towards local communities and frontline organizations. And hopefully, maybe more money also being funneled towards anticipatory action. I wish you a very fruitful discussion today, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Many thanks to IKEA Foundation and for that input. Just quickly now, I'd pass to Michelle Ormischer, who's the START Network Director of Finance, just to give us a quick overview of the structure of the funds and the structure of the grants and the allocations that were made from the fund. Over to you, Michelle.
Thanks, David, and thanks to Julia for her message. We are incredibly grateful to the IKEA Foundation for providing us with this opportunity to work and to support our members during a really difficult time. And one of the reasons we were able to design and implement the Solidarity Fund so rapidly and get it off the ground, apart from the very hard work and dedication of the team and the members that supported us in that design process, was the use of our existing mechanisms for the START Fund and START Ready, as we've kind of alluded to before. And we were very keen to kind of be consistent with our existing processes. Part of that was making awards in line with our existing current tiered due diligence caps. So we were able to provide kind of funding to our tier 1 members up to £15,000, which is in line with our existing processes. And they would for activities to support either organisational strengthening, which is how we support tier 1 members already, or also to help cover their core costs in response to their funding losses. And we were able to award 5 of our tier 1 members through this system. And then tier 2 were able to access up to £100,000 and tier 3 up to £300,000, very consistent with our existing processes. As David alluded to before, we had calls for proposals from across many of our members, and we received 43 proposals and applications for funding. We asked as part of that application that they kind of gave us a picture of the levels of cuts that they were facing from the USA cuts, and those 43 proposals represented nearly £90 million of funding cuts, which was just phenomenal. Unfortunately, we didn't have the funds to fill all of that gap. Through the 43 proposals, there was a request for £8.6 million of funding, and we were able to allocate 3.75 million to 23 projects. So we funded 23 projects across 18 different countries across the world, totaling that 3.75. Next slide gives us a little picture of the kind of the disbursement of those allocations. So out of the 23, we were able to fund 13 of our local and national NGO members and 10 of our INGO members. And the local and national funding represented £1.1 million of that pot, and the INGOs, 10 INGO proposals, the 2.6 million, making up the rest of that pot. I'm going to hand back to David, and he's going to introduce our guests that we have today to tell us of their experiences of accessing the Solidarity Fund.
Thanks so much, Michelle, for the summary and the overview. And yes, with thanks to 4 members who accessed the fund, we're going to hear a little bit more about the challenges that they were facing. So we've posed these 2 questions to all of the speakers. Firstly, we asked, what was the impact of the USAID funding cuts, both to your organization and your country as you saw it? And then what has been achieved so far in the Solidarity Fund project? So firstly, I'm happy to introduce Dr. Iftikhar El-Sagaf, who is from Care International as the head of Care International Aid and Hub Office. And she's going to share a little bit about the £300,000 project for wash completion in the Ma'rib and Aden areas in Yemen. So over to you.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. So talking about the impact of the USG funding cut on Yemen and on CARE, and the impact of the Solidarity Fund. Yemen has faced over a decade of extended crisis and conflict, leaving 19.5 million people in Yemen in need of humanitarian assistance. U.S. government funding was a major source of aid, and its recent reduction has led to a significant humanitarian and operational gap. The consequences of such cuts, a tragic fatality was reported by UNFPA recently, where a pregnant woman in her 3rd trimester died due to the absence of a gynecologist at a health facility that had previously been supported by humanitarian aid. The facility had lost critical support after the shutdown. No alternative referral was available, and the woman was unable to access life-saving obstetric care in time. This case underlines the direct life-threatening consequences of aid cuts on maternal health, particularly in remote and conflict-affected areas. Due to the significant funding cuts, particularly from the key donors like the USG, numerous safe spaces for women and girls across Yemen have been forced to shut down, and even for CARE, we have to close 4 safe spaces, 2 in Lahaj and 1 in Adala and 1 in Ma'rib. These spaces are often the only source of protections, provided psychosocial support and referral for survivors of gender-based violence, and their closure had serious humanitarian and protection consequences. More than 300 women and girls have lost access to GBV prevention and response services. Many of the closed safe spaces were provided psychosocial first aid and counseling, legal aid and case management, referral to health and shelter services, awareness session on right and protection. Without these services, survivors are silenced by fear and stigma, left without safe reporting channel. at a greater risk of repeated violence, mental health deterioration. Considering even the food security and livelihood, according to recent IPC estimates, 18.1 million people, more than half of the Yemeni population, may face crisis or worse levels of food insecurity by early 2026. Funding cuts have faced major major food aid scale down. Like example, we have WFP decreased rations for millions of population in Yemen. And even in this such consequences, care also affected, as we are implementing the same program in Abiyan funded by WFP. We were targeting 11 districts, and now due to the cut, we will be targeting only 7 out of the 11 districts. So this is, in general, like for now, for the direct impact on the USG cuts on care before the termination of the USG funding, care worked through 14 governorates in Yemen, reaching more than 2.7 million people annually, operating through 5 sub-offices. After the termination, Care Yemen now works in 7 governorates supported through 2 sub-offices. The reduction in the USG funds, which is 40% of Care Yemen's budget, has caused 2 water, sanitation, and hygiene program cancellation, one funded by USAID and one by PHA. Under the USAID project, 11 water and sewage system over 2 governorates were to be built, but only 3 were completed by the time of the project closure. In the PHA project, 19 water systems over 6 governorates were planned, and none had been fully completed by the time of the closure. Subsequent erosion of operational and technical capacity because of the termination. When a major donors like USAID suspended funding, the humanitarian program were interrupted mid-cycle, left unfinished, especially infrastructure like wash system, total shutdown for mobile clinic, IDP services, and safe spaces. The Solidarity Fund, preventing critical service gaps, ensured continuity of care, prevented infrastructure and staff capacity. The Solidarity Fund played a critical gap filling role in our programming by providing rapid, flexible, and need-driven funding to sustain life-saving services during a time of suspended fund. The projects sustained by the Solidarity Fund are and one is El Jamhuriya Hospital in Aden, one of the largest referral hospital in southern Yemen, established in 1958 by the British government, serving 50,000 population per month. The project was almost like 70% complete when the funding cuts halted work in January. The hospital sewage system had been overflowing, threatening infection spread and disturbing emergency care. Critical for addressing the persistent sewage overflow caused by high patient load, deteriorated infrastructure, and low manhole levels, which had severely impacted hospital operation. The second project implemented currently by the Solidarity Fund is the Bir Nasser water pump installation. Project was 80% completed with all materials on site. Rapid resumption possible due to the preserved infrastructure. Service 3 key wells, critically addressing the acute shortage of safe drinking water in Aden, and was strongly endorsed by local water authority as a top priority for improving water access across the governorates. The START Fund also, like the Solidarity Flexible Fund, allowed also resumption of critical wash infrastructure in Ma'rib, provided a lifeline for services for internally displaced people and host communities, and in 2 of the camps. Like we have also the water committee training 2 water management committee established with 14 trained members, government recognition secured through the Garwa partnership, training curriculum covers operation, maintenance, and financial sustainability, maintenance toolkit and stationaries was provided. Community health volunteer, more than 24 community health volunteers selected and trained, a gender balanced approach ensuring women participation, IEC materials created and distributed to the communities, more than 11,000 chlorine tablets procured for household water treatment. So created, due to this sustainability, due to this solidarity fund, we created community-led systems designed to function independently of external funding, reducing vulnerability to future donor cuts and ensuring continuity of essential services. In addition to the restoration of program activities, the Solidarity Fund preserved CARES and its partner operation credibility with local authorities, community leaders, and cluster coordination mechanism, avoiding a breakdown in trust with affected communities, supported local continuity and presence, helped retain technical staff and local partners during the funding vacuum, demonstrated commitment to local ownership and community resilience. Finally, and certainly not the last, the START Network Fund did not replace the scale of major donor funding, but it played a key role in preventing collapse, bridging critical gaps, and safeguarding lives and dignity during an acute period of funding disruption in Yemen. So thank you for your listening, and thank you to the organizers of the assembly for your effort in bringing us together, and looking forward for future partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Iftikhar, for your contribution. If there are any questions, please post them in the chat. We'll also have a chance for discussion at the end. But now we can proceed, and it would be great to hear from Nasir-Uddin Farouk, who's the Deputy Chief Executive of Shushilan. Shushilan are a Tier 1 organization of Start Network, a member of Start Network, who access £15,000 for organizational strengthening support. Over to you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, to giving me the opportunity to talk about this solidarity fund and other one. Just to before going through the project briefing, I'm just talking about my organizations. My organization name is Shushilan. Is a Bangla word. It means the practice of good. So we started in 1991, and till then we work. We all have the experience to all over the country. Currently, we are working in 33 districts. So now I come to the fund cut, the project. We have a project with USAID funded. The name of the project is Youth Are Resilient, Interconnected, Socially Cohesive, and Engaged. So we call it Youth-based project. The project aims to communicate with the establish 16 youth center development, the Youth Development Center, where we supported more than 3,600 people, youth in their center life. So and in the center, we are talking about them, their skill development things, and also their alternative livelihood, as well as also communicate with the local people as their business purpose, so that they cannot, the project is located in the Cox's Bazar, where the Rohingya community is having, so that they have the cohesiveness with the Rohingya community as well as their own community. By the fund cut of the USAID, suddenly, so we, according to plan, the project is stopped suddenly. So it creates a negative impact in the society, as well as with the community and our staff also. The 30 staff are looking this project. but all are suddenly stopped. So this project is totally, we disconnected all the things. So, and it's also negatively impacted the organizations. So we are not providing any support. So that things happened, and we are not able to continue the project anymore because of the funding crisis. So in these things, particularly this project, Solidarity Fund help a lot with us. We considering all these things, we started to thinking, and the project come, and we take initiative to have our capacity strengthening project particularly for the organizations. So in the organizations, we thought and we developed this project in a way so that we also build our capacity, as well as also build the capacity of the affected people of the fund cut. So primarily we started, we plan to establish, review and develop a contingency management policy, which is talk about how we actually meet the crisis, this type of crisis. And we also review 3 policies like review and update the policy, the financial policy, our data protection policy, as well as the accountability and safeguarding policy. We also take initiative to this the youth. We also have some activities with the youth also. We also build capacity of them. We plan to build capacity with them, and we also take the things like how they will respond in the humanitarian aspect and according to and also the disaster. And we also have that safeguarding. We also train and capacitize their safeguarding policy, as well as how they will do the data policy. These are the things we in a way so that people can have their own studies, and this fund is helped a lot because the start fund, the Solidarity Fund help us to continue the things, as well as it also create a positive impact in the society as well. Because the sudden when we stop the I mentioned earlier that when we stop the activity in the community, heavily negatively impacted. The fund, though the fund is very small, but it is continue the things which is no, as we didn't do the as per plan, but at least something will do in the community. This is the great things also. It's also a great thing to capacitize ourselves. So look, the things we are people, we have we review some policies which is help you and the carry forward the things and will lead to the sustainability. The things way though these funds they help me a lot, help us a lot, and we admire the start fund as well as the solidarity fund, so that this fund could be this fund help us a lot, and we admire for this. So if we're talking about the challenges of the fund, so actually this type of fund cut is created. I told the negative impact. So this is the things, but if we can do the for a year, so the policy we develop, it will help us to mitigate this type of shock actually. And also we can go forward togetherly. The start fund and the association or the development fund can join it, go forward to how we face this type of problem. So thank you very much to listen, give the opportunity to talk about these things, and thank you all.
Thanks so much, Nashir. Thank you so much, Nashir, for sharing, and yeah, thank you so much, Shushilan, for joining the conversation. And if now we could pass to Ali Mohammed Ali, who's the Deputy Executive Director of Programs for Grado Somalia, who are a member of Star Network, a member of the Somali Humanitarian Hub, to hear about the £300,000 project focused on wash, health and nutrition in Baidoa and Marco in Somalia. Ali, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. This is Ali. I'm joining you from Mogadishu, Somalia. And thanks again. I'll be speaking on behalf of Credo, a Somali national NGO that has been operating in the country for the last 33 years. And I want to share maybe on the two aspects of the funding cuts and how the Solidarity Fund has supported us in the light of bridging the gap. So maybe to put into context, Somalia, of course, one of the most aid-dependent countries in the world with over 7 million people, and nearly that translates 40% of the population requiring humanitarian assistance just in 2025. USAID has historically been among the largest donors to Somalia, especially supporting in the areas of food security, health, nutrition, education, and stabilization programs nationwide. Living gaps, no single donor has yet been able to fill and the gap, of course, threatening to reverse years of fragile progress that has been made. Just specifically on how the whole funding cut has affected us at Credo as an organization. The USAID cut funds has hit us, of course, particularly hard, just being a national NGO with the immediate effects that are being felt, of course, in staffing, in service continuity, and also community well-being. Just in a 5 categorical areas is like the staffing. Maybe if we start with that, we have been forced to lay off over 258 staff and 208 teachers across our education programs. This was not only about jobs, but it was about the backbone of service delivery in the already fragile community. Service disruption, we had long been implementing integrated programming of health, nutrition, wash protection, and FSF combined. This has also been suspended. Over 39 health facilities combined has been closed. Over 45 schools has also been closed that was serving the community. And the integrated health nutrition program alone was supporting nearly 1 million people within Somalia across 3 federal member state regions. Education-wise, over 16,656 students has been put on hold that we were supporting education programs. Of course, this undermining years of progress in keeping children in a school. Cash assistance was another sector that was heavily hit as a grade of programming. And also in food assistance, over 11,000, that's nearly 6,600 people, 66,000, sorry, were also being directly affected. At the national level, looking holistically, Somalia's humanitarian architecture is heavily US dependent. So these cuts ripple across the entire ecosystem. Many Somali NGOs, including Credo, are now forced to scale down in areas where there are no other donors that is still stepping in. Looking at the Solidarity Fund actions held, the Solidarity Fund supported a project that we are currently implementing, of course, was aimed at restoring essential health, nutrition, and wash services in Beidou and Marco. This acted as a lifeline. It allowed us to resolve a critical service in Beidou and Marca districts when the US suspension took effect. Specifically, it enabled the continuity of malnutrition treatment, maternal and child health care, immunization, micronutrient supplementation. It also strengthened community resilience by supporting community health workers, hygiene promoters, mother-to-mother groups. Without this fund, many services would have collapsed immediately. Through our integrated project, as so far as we are implementing the project, we have managed to reach 94,668 people with a life-saving and resilience building support. On the WASH element alone, 18,780 people have so far benefited. On the nutritional component, 33,248 people have so far benefited, ranging from preventing and treatment of malnutrition among children and strengthening the well-being of pregnant and lactating mothers. The health component has also managed to reach 42,640 people across the board, ensuring access to essential care, maternity and child health, and life-saving treatment. Together, these interventions not only address the urgent needs, but also enhanced the resilience and the dignity of the vulnerable communities. Without the Solidarity Fund, the suspension of the US support would have created a complete vacuum. Instead, we right now have like a buffer to protect lives while also seeking a medium-term solution. Thank you, David. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Ali, for the contributions and to hear about the projects. Once again, if you have any questions for Ali or any of the speakers or any comments, please do post them in the chat. And now just moving on to the final inputs from the member panel today. We're going to introduce Nehemi Babikana, who is the DRC Program Quality Manager for Tier Fund. Fund access 230,000 GBP for a wash and hygiene promotion program in South Kivu. Nehemi, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, David, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone, depending on where you are. I'm joining from Goma, a city in the eastern DRC, and I'm joining for Tier Fund. The eastern part of DRC continues to face decades of protracted conflicts, particularly in Ituri, North Kivu, and South Kivu. And as per a research that we did in June 2023, 25.8 million people are still facing crisis level food insecurity. And 6.29 million people are in displacement, and 88% of them are in the three provinces that I just cited. 26.4 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance nationwide, so in the DRC, in global. So the gaps that we have here are actually big, even though we have 35 humanitarian actors who are active in these three areas I just cited. The scale of the crisis is still going up, so the gap is still there. And Tier Fund is ensuring coordination with clusters, but also with other actors to avoid duplication and enhance impact. We cannot afford to do duplication because people are so much in need, and if we duplicate, it will be like a waste of our efforts, but also it will have less impact than what we are actually expecting to see. As conclusion to the introduction, the Eastern DRC continues to experience multi-layered humanitarian crisis, which is driven by conflict, displacement, food insecurity, and lack of basic wash and protection services. So urgent, coordinated, and sustained efforts are essential to meet critical needs and restore dignity to the affected populations. We were doing all of this with many sources of funding, but what did we do with the USAID funding? We would say the BHA one. So with the BHA USAID funding, we were doing a project that was covering two sectors. There was the wash sector, but also the food security sector with one of our partners who are working here locally. So for the wash sector, we were covering 880,000 people, including 570 IDPs. We were providing emergency water, sanitation, and hygiene to conflict-affected population, also all these populations. So as subsector, we were doing, we are actually continuing to do water supply, sanitation infrastructure, hygiene promotion, NFI and MHM item distributions. For food security sector, We are covering 120,000 people, and all of those people are IDPs. They're actually living in camps, but also some of them are living in host families. So after February 2025, when Tier Fund received the letter of funding cuts, we were impacted at two levels. So the first level is actually globally, because Tier Fund is actually a global organization. Globally, we were impacted by, I'd say, 10%, as only two countries were working with the USAID funding, and both in Africa. So we have DRC and South Sudan. So at country level, maybe let's not talk about South Sudan, let's talk about DRC. We have been impacted at 75%, as USAID was the major donor of our programs. Although we had other sources of funding with other donors and private income from the HQ, USAID actually carried the biggest part of it, and that is why we talk about 75% of impact. So in the DRC, in the program, 58 staff contracts were not renewed when we experienced the funding cut in February. What we did was we kept our staff running their contract up to June, because we could not cut their contract brutally. We had to extend up to June, when their contracts were actually going to go to an end. And we closed the two field offices, one in Ituri and one in South Kivu. We had some challenges also with our accountability, because we already had some commitments with our participants in the field, which are communities, service providers, and local authorities. But we actually dealt with that, because we already started preparing them ahead of time, knowing that there could be the funding cuts. So it was a little bit less stressful than what we were expecting. So what are the way forward for Cheer Fund? We keep the same vision, and we also keep the same mission and our strategic objectives. And we want to continue working with our local partners to be able to continue to reinforce localization. And we want to continue working in consortia to coordinate assistance. So, how was the Solidarity Fund helpful? I'll say it was very, very helpful, because it came at a time where we needed to continue with our activities, where we needed to be sure that our communities don't feel the shock the same way that organizations were feeling and are feeling the shock. So, with the funds received from Start Network Solidarity Fund, we decided to finish up with some of the works which remained unfinished from the BHA project, just in one province. This is South Kivu, as others were a little bit ahead, and they were even merely finishing the constructions. We opened one field office with the 8 staff who had contracts from July to November this year. We were able to supply water to more than 35,000 people through water sources and springs. We were able to also distribute dignity kits to 800 women and childbearing girls. We were also able to distribute NFI wash kits to 800 households. So for sanitation, we were able to resume and continue with messaging on latrine improvements, as now we only build latrines under our project to support IDP camps, churches, schools, and health centers. For people living in host communities, we encourage them to build their own latrine or improve the one that they have with Tier Funds mentoring, but also with Tier Funds accompaniment. This is also to reinforce the inclusion, but also the sustainability of the work that we are doing in the field, but also the resilience into the community. So we also continued the messaging on hygiene promotion, and till now it's going, because the project has not yet ended. All the activities that we are actually doing will be ended by November. So this is what we are able to do with the Solidarity Fund, which was very, very helpful to us. And which was very, very key to us continuing to reinforce our relationship with the field, with the communities that we are working with, but also our relationship with ourselves, as we know that we are called to deliver. We are also called to serve our communities. So yeah, thank you for your time to listen. And yes, we will be open to discussions to talk more about this. Yeah, thank you very much. Over to you, David.
Thanks so much, Nahemi, for sharing your updates. So we have heard now from the 4 projects from the Solidarity Fund, and obviously a lot about the cuts and the challenges that you have been facing in the last few months. So thank you so much to everyone for sharing. I think at this point, we have about 15 minutes remaining. We wanted to take a look forward, and we wanted to ask 2 more questions. Firstly, where we are now, and as we look forward, what are the challenges that lie ahead? The funding cuts seem to be obviously so large, but growing. What do you see the future looking like for your organization, for the humanitarian sector in your country? But also thinking about the themes of our assembly, are there ways already that you're thinking that we could work together more effectively, more efficiently? What are your ideas, and how can we move forward together? At this point as well, please share questions in the chat, but also if you have a contribution and an answer to these questions, please raise your hand and we would be very open to having others come in to contribute. So I would open the panel. I don't know who wants to come in first to contribute, but anyone, please go ahead.
I can.
Please go ahead, Dr.
Yes, thank you, David. As we explained, we talked earlier, that is the anticipated challenges due to the funding cuts. It will be leave many vulnerable families without food, water, shelter, and medical care, result in difficult in prioritization decision where only the most life-threatening needs will be addressed, while other critical but less visible issues go unserved. Of course, there will be high malnutrition and disease rates. We already in Yemen have high mortality, maternal mortality rates, and under 5 mortality rates are very high. Erosion of the operational capacity, obstructed pathway and recovering. So the challenges more and more will be more visible. How we can work more effectively and efficiently together in the face of funding cuts. I think for the first thing is we have to maximize the impact, minimize the duplication, strengthen our collaboration. We have to work very closely and strengthen our interagency coordination to reduce the overlap, and also conducting joint need assessment, because sometimes even the assessment in the field, and we faced we supposed to conduct a smart survey, and the cost of the survey was very, very high. So we have to look for some other corporate partners to join us. So can use joint need assessment and response plan. This is also a very helpful to work through the cluster, HCT, and the clear INGO form in the area to avoid, as I mentioned, the overlaps. Empower local. I saw even in the chat they are talking that many local organizations also affected from the cuts. Yes, we have to empower the local and national actors who have deep contextual knowledge and cost-effective access to hard-to-reach area. We currently in CARE Yemen, we are working with more than 7 local partners and building the capacity for more than 20 CSOs through conducting all the training for them, building their institutional system, and also providing them with the small grants to be able to promote from CSOs to a local partner. So I think this is also very important. And our call for the donors also to have a flexible funding that allow organizations to respond rapidly to shifting needs and optimize resources allocation, multi-year funding, enabling also us to see our impact. Because like currently we have like 1 year project, and in a country like Yemen, like it takes 2 months to 3 months just to get the approval for the sub-agreement, and another 2 to 3 months for the procurement. And we don't see the actual impact in, in our program. But once like some donors like EU, we have the DRA, we have the FCDO, we have more than 2 or 3 years, and in such way we can also follow properly and have evidence based for proposal development and such things. So this is also very important also to strengthen our accountability and transparency, to have to strengthen the local partners, delivering evidence-based targeted intervention, embracing innovation, especially for water system in Yemen, and also for food and security and agriculture. Like we have many ways can decrease and have more impact with the small fund, and during this a shortage of fund. So I will give the floor for my other colleagues. Thank you for listening.
Thanks so much for the contributions. Would anyone else from the panel like to come in to address these 2 points?
Yes, can I come in? Good. Thanks, David. For the maybe challenge, I think they are quite potential challenges, and looking ahead with the shrinking funding globally across the board, and specifically for Somalia, not only USAID but also other key Somali donor actors are sort of downscaling their funding investment in Somalia. So that can also contribute to the wider gap in terms of maybe funding holistically. Maybe the challenge ahead of us is the sustainability of services. If a donor diversification does not expand, especially services like life-saving, malnutrition, health, education could be collapsing in Somalia specifically. And then there's also the challenge of human resource drain, especially for national NGOs. With these continued cuts, this could be already in NGOs and technical staff. And we have already experienced that, like staff that we have been investing for the last 8 years or so have just been, downscaled and then left the organization, which could also jeopardize the long invested capacity of the national NGOs. There's also the challenge of shrinking civic space. With less funding, Somali-led NGOs lose leverage in coordination and advocacy platforms. Of course, this would be slowing down progress on localization. And maybe looking ahead and how we can work together to overcome. I partially agree with what my sister has said before me. We need to invest in pool and anticipatory funding, like the Solidarity Fund, to act as shock absorbers. We also need to strengthen donor visibility, multi-year and less earmarked funding to allow NGOs to pivot when crises like this arises. Genuine localization is one also key way forward, giving national NGOs a greater share of decision-making power, including leadership roles in consortia and other funding governance. And last but not the least, we also need to enhance efficiency through collaboration between NGOs, national NGOs, and the donors in co-designing responses that reduce duplication and maximize community reach across the board. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ali, for the inputs. Who wants to come in next? Nashin,
Yes.
you ready to go?
Okay, I'll be last, no problem.
Okay, Nashin, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So Maybe I'll start with the challenges. There are many challenges. I think we cannot be able to cite all of them right now, but maybe I'll talk about those which are really so much visible. So the challenge that we can observe here in the DRC are the fact that the needs are still scaling up because the causes of the emergency has not yet stopped. Most times here it's conflict, it's disasters such as volcano, such as drought, such as flooding, and all those things are still occurring. And the funds are now growing low. So it's a little bit of the contrary. The funds are growing low, but the needs are growing very high. This is a big challenge that we are seeing here. The other big challenge that we can face here is that the government is actually dealing with a lot because there is still crisis, as I was saying, conflict. So the government is really giving so much energy into that to respond to the conflict, to respond to the crisis. But many of the points which were supposed to be covered so that the communities live in a good condition are not covered. So this is something that is showing that humanitarian needs are growing very high in the DRC, but there is less interest in that right now because of funding cuts, but also the continuing conflicts. So for that, I also have a few ideas to respond to that. And the first one is already what others have talked about. It is localization. I believe that since we experienced the funding cuts, we tend to see that the local organizations are coping better than the international ones because many times they have diverse sources of income because they have small, and they actually make a better diverse source of income. The other thing that maybe I'd encourage is also joint responses. We've seen that through many projects. I think Iftikhar talked about DRA. They encourage joint responses. This is to help us to be able to do work that is complementary because we cannot be able again to do a lot, but we can at least do together, and the smaller can bring the small, another NGO brings, it can give a good handful of support to the community. There's also something that is really helpful here in the DRC. It is the alert from Start Network. This alert, when activated, organizations are able to get rapid funds to respond to the crisis. So this is really helping. We want to continue activating these alerts and be able to respond to the needs of the community. The other thing that we can continue investing in is anticipatory action because responding to this crisis is not always very easy. So if we also start investing in anticipatory action, it can help our communities to grow more resilient. And when there is an emergency, when there is a disaster due to all the things I cited, the communities are easier to cope with it and are easier to respond, to be able to be fine, not as it is right now. So maybe the last thing is working in coordination with clusters and working groups. This also helps to be able to know where there can be opportunities of funding and where we can put efforts together. Sometimes we have some assets at our offices which are not necessarily funding, but they can be things that can help another organization work. I'll give an example. We had a big quantity of chlorine at our office here, but thanks to participating into all these working groups, we knew that there are some organizations which are having these activities and they need the chlorine, and the Tier Fund was able to distribute these chlorines to these organizations, and they were able to continue with their activities. So these are the few points that I wanted to add. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Nahemi. And just in our last minute, please, the floor is yours, Nashir. Over to you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, David, giving me the opportunity, and I hope I will have very short time So I'll be very short and precise. You know, the challenges, a lot of challenges over there, and our three colleagues also already mentioned. One of the main challenges is to another, I mentioned that it create a negative impact in the society actually. When you stop anything, it create a negative impact. That's the big one, because we are the development organization. So to revive this one, we have take a lot of effort to revive this one also. And it hampered the continuation of the development and the humanitarian activities. Just I want to make an example. The project the fund cut in the area is Rohingya refugees area, so which is the largest displaced people are settled there. And this project is help a lot to the youth, those who are the host community. But it when it stopped, they lose their hope also. So that's why the problem is there. And to face this is challenges of FunCard, we can do a lot of options are already talked, and I mentioned a few one. So we can mention our inner capacity to face this one. So we can create some fund to this type of to face this type of incident like this. We also mobilize the local resources. So CHR or this fund all can be mobilized. We can also jointly take initiative by the State Fund and the development organizations who have the international connections and other feasibility then connection that will make help us. And first and lastly, we will take about the transparency and accountability. So everyone does this, so we're very much precise on that. And in this way, we can face these problems and also sensitize the local community also, so that they can also have the knowledge and have the sense to this type of to face this type of problem. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about these things. Over to David.
Thanks all so much for your contributions today. We have heard a lot of challenges, but we've already heard a lot of really interesting solutions and next steps to take forward. We want to continue these discussions during the virtual and especially in the in-person assembly. How can we all work together to bring these solutions to life? So yeah, thanks once again. We look forward to continuing the conversation. The links for the next session are in the chat, and good day to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.